Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey, and welcome to yet another rendition or edition, I guess, of Lynn Cullen, still alive. And it is September 9 in the year of our woe, 2020. We are expecting Ryan Deto, chief writer for Pittsburgh City Paper, to be joining us. I want to talk to him and with him about the state of the protest movement in Pittsburgh, or at least the recent bad behavior of some protesters. Let us be clear. A very small group. I think you can count them on one hand. Most of the people who were at the protest that has gotten so much attention because of videos of some protesters behaving, let me just say, in a counterproductive way, let alone just obnoxious. So I'm going to quickly text Ryan and make sure he remembers. I'm telling, hey, Ryan, you there?
Yes, hello.
Hello. Fashionably late.
It's me, Ryan Deto. Right on time.
No, you're 3 minutes late, buddy.
Mine says 2. Okay.
All right, 2. You're right. You're right. Hi, how you doing?
Hi, good.
Okay, well, I was just ranting a bit, tap dancing before you got on, about the fact that I would say a handful of protesters in Pittsburgh over the weekend were, to say the least, counterproductive in their behavior. Another word is stupid. Another word is, it's maddening. And I don't have to say another word. All I have to do is say that it provided fodder to the right wing and to even the president. Right. What the hell is going on?
I guess during one of the protest marches that typically happen every Saturday, part of it's unclear if it was part of the same march or if it was, I guess I don't like to use the word splinter, but like a splinter march or something like that occurred, and this is like pretty typical of a lot of the marches too, is that maybe there's one main march and, some other people, want to keep protesting. They want to keep chanting. They want to keep, I guess the pressure on or whatever they want to, whatever demonstration they want to do. So sometimes it'll just kind of continue on. And when a group of them were walking down Penn Avenue in downtown, some of them, I think probably two of them got
two. It looks like two.
Two.
And we know who they are, right?
Yes.
They are. Okay. Because
they're fairly well-known protesters. They're usually leading marches or doing some kind of chants. But at the same time, these protests are sort of leaderless, I guess, in a way. Mm-hmm. And there usually tends to be a lot of speakers and a lot of people who might be leading chants or marches, but these two people are among those people quite regularly.
Well, one is is Lorenzo.
Yep, that's
Lorenzo Rulli, or is that how it's pronounced?
Yes, yeah.
Now he, just to be clear, was also the guy who was the leader of the initial protests at Mayor Peduto's house.
Yep.
Yes. I want to ask a question. And he was arrested a few nights later, right?
Yeah, he's been arrested a few times.
Yeah. I just I had wanted to talk to you about this. I saw once somebody say, and I want to know if you know this is true, that he said he was off his meds.
Okay.
Is that true? I mean, that he's bipolar.
I can't confirm any of anything about his medical condition. He hasn't spoken to me about that. I don't even know if I've ever spoken to him for a story. But
he tweeted that out.
Yes, he has mentioned that he has mental health issues.
Yes, he does. And that night that he was in the car and the police were trying to arrest him, and that night the police went to incredible efforts. They were really patient.
Oh, yes. Yes.
To get him out of the car. I mean, we'll give credit where credit is due. And they knew they were dealing with someone who was off his meds.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if he's still off his meds, and I'm wondering what somebody off their meds is doing. Who the hell? Somebody's got to take charge. They're doing damage now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to be frank, I agree with you. I think there needs to be, some kind of effort or internal, workings that kind of, ensure that if someone like, Lorenzo has suffers from mental health issues, it's probably smart to help him in a way that, isn't kind of putting him in that, putting him in those situations that, he might lash out. As someone myself who has, a family member with severe mental health issues, it's a struggle,
Yeah. And I don't mean to, I'm just saying and this woman, or not a woman, I don't know, Nikki, is that how she pronounces it? They pronounce it Nikki Kraft?
Yes.
The video shows her, just behaving, first of all, stupidly, because she picks up someone's drink and drinks it.
Right.
That's real smart when there's a pandemic going on.
Especially during a pandemic, yeah. It's inappropriate even not during a pandemic, and it's especially inappropriate during a pandemic.
And then somebody else throwing the glass, and then the stuff in the McDonald's where you have a black manager, and he's going insane with these people. Get them out of here. And none of the stories the protester, and I want to say that most of the protesters didn't do anything. They were doing what protesters do. They were still in the street, and they were doing their chants.
Right.
Well, they got to get rid of these idiots who supposedly are I don't know. And when you have an amorphous group with no real strong leadership, it's pretty hard to get control.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of been the case for most of the protests, is kind of this amorphous group, and it's been somewhat successful throughout the time, and they've been in situations that have been extremely sympathetic to them in terms of the police, how they've been going after and arresting and tear gassing and pepper spraying things.
Right.
But I think something that I've really thought about is that obviously, just like everything, a few bad apples don't showcase the whole group of what's happening, the whole movement of what is happening. But how the media is set up now is that it's always been skewed against this, for the status quo, which is against this movement,
Right.
And
exactly.
So when there's any instances of bad behavior by the protesters, and I think it's pretty clear that no one supports somebody drinking someone's beer and getting in their face and then smashing a glass, or hitting
or intimidating people who are sitting outside eating. What did they do?
Even if they
even if they said something.
even if they said something. And I think that's really something that, of course, like there might be an antagonistic, saying that might bring you over, that might bring you to do something. But if you are a leader of a movement, and even if you're just leading a march of a movement, like, I just think that, like, that has to be the central focus of what's happening,
Yeah.
And so to kind of let that occur and be caught on video, and then have, like, I just think it's obvious the right wing is going to take advantage.
Oh, man, they didn't waste a second, Ryan.
Right.
It's like wrap it up in a bow and just send it to the White House or Fox News.
That's what it felt like. And it's really frustrating to someone who's been covering these things, because it's a split second of hours and hours of all these protests that have been perfectly peaceful and powerful and good speeches and all these other things. So, but at the same time, like, you have to realize that can happen. That can happen. If you do.
You squander. Think of all the marching, all the goodwill and that was created by so much, and support. And then all you need is something like this, and you start peeling people away who do not in any way want to support what they just saw.
Right. I mean, yes, I 100% agree. I think that sometimes these movements can forget about what effect they're having in the media, right? So if you have a very powerful movement that's sympathetic, the effect you can have on the media is powerful, right? You can get to the people that don't necessarily agree with you in the beginning, and they might start agreeing with you, right? The analogy I love to use is the Nashville sit-ins in the 60s, right? Like, segregation was a law of the land, and it was supported, right? And it was because of John Lewis and these other student activists that went into, all these lunch counters in Nashville, and they just sat there, right? And they just said, "Please serve me." Because
and they didn't talk back when they were being...
Didn't talk back, and people were throwing drinks on them and all these other things. And I obviously don't support segregation, obviously, and I don't support other people intimidating them and being rude to them and pouring drinks on them and yelling slurs at them and all these other things. But what happened is that the press coverage that came out of that was so powerful that Nashville, within I think 3 or 4 months, ended segregation as downtown lunch counters.
Well, I'm thinking, because you mentioned John Lewis.
Yeah.
And he talks about getting in good trouble. Right. And that's good trouble. What these guys did Saturday ain't good trouble.
No. Well, at least the few that did it, right? The
few that did it, but that's the only ones who get covered. And they've got to be, I don't know who's supposed to do it. The fact that I start squawking and screaming about it, I can be dismissed immediately as an old white lady. Yeah. The fact that you, in your position with City Paper, who I'm sure that the vast majority of protesters think of as an ally,
right,
is saying, hey, that maybe
they don't think of me an ally anymore.
Well, no, you've got a position here where you can. I don't know, where are the people who these out of control few can, where are the people that can talk to them?
I mean, honestly, that's a question I've been, that's a question I've been pondering myself.
Yeah.
I don't know if there really is, I don't really know if there's that structure that's set up, and I also don't know if there's an appetite to talk to them. So,
what about the old, I was talking to a friend about this the other day. Somebody, an old warrior, like Tim Stevens or Carl Redwood. I don't even know if you know some of these old wonderful black men. Why can't they?
I don't have any say. I don't think they have any say in that group. I think they've been out at some of the protests, some of the bigger ones, but I mean, you have to remember that these things have been ongoing for months now, and so they're smaller than they once were. I think that there's only a certain group of people that attend them. A smaller group, a more dedicated or more, I'll just say smaller group, that attend these things. And I don't think any of that, I'm pretty sure none of that hierarchy exists between those, between, the Black community or even the leftist community, so.
Do you know Kimberly Ellis?
I don't.
Is she? She's. I'm looking at I'm looking at the Tribune Review, and they say she's founder of Black Politics Matter. I don't know what that is, but
okay.
She said those of us who have been activists, those of us who are leaders in our community, all of us, we want everyone to know that it is completely unacceptable behavior. It does not represent us. This is, and this is not about coddling white feelings or respectability politics. We do not approve of this behavior. So, I mean, I don't know who she is, but she's trying.
Right.
They can't be getting much support except from their own little bubble
right.
they might be in.
Right. I think clearly there's been some people who have come out and said, something about how this, they don't support this behavior, but there are other people who are saying that are defending, maybe not the explicit action, but the whole situation, I guess.
Yes. Well, you know what? I have something right here that completely, damn. I want to get it on, no, let me just get this off for a second till I get to where I want the audio to kick in. Okay, here, I've got it. Wait. Stop. Oh, I'm such a...
This is a boomer moment for sure.
I know. Never mind, an old, addled boomer woman. But what I'm trying to get here... shit. Okay, wait. What I'm trying to get here, God damn it, is Trevor Noah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because why can't I find... Okay, here it is. God damn it. There might be a little bleed over from what I don't want to hear, but here we go. Okay, wait a minute.
Okay, guys, no, I'm sorry, but no. I'm all for the Black Lives Matter movement and fighting against systemic racism and police brutality, but it's not acceptable to storm a restaurant and just flip over tables. First, you introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Sean, and I'll be your protester this evening. Then you flip over the tables. Manners, people. Now look, jokes aside, we are living through one of the most stressful times in modern history, right? And in order to have any honest conversation, we have to acknowledge everything that's happening. You have a pandemic with people losing their jobs and people losing their lives. On top of all of that, you have a nation that has been inundated with images of police brutality day in and day out. People who are experiencing it all the time. Here's what I think. I think sometimes in society, people get more focused on the symptoms than the cause. Because right now, everyone's talking about what's the right way to protest. What is the right way to protest? I think the real question people should be asking is, why does there need to be a protest in the first place? Because if I had a magic wand, I wouldn't be trying to fix protest. Yeah, I'd use it to get the police to stop brutalizing black people. That's what...
Okay, and he goes on and starts... Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot of people who would push back what we're saying now, but... I mean, I just don't... It's so obvious.
I do think that, like, different forms of protest are going to evolve through time, right? Like, obviously I brought up, like, the Nashville sit-ins, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way to go now. Well, one, because segregation is illegal. And so they're specifically, protesting one thing, right? And so I do think that, we don't know exactly what the right method of, protesting will be in the future to really address this movement. I am confident in saying that the way to really move the needle on these things is to get the kind of press coverage that moves the needle, I guess so to say.
Well, you do that, though, then by, yes, as you said, a certain kind of
right.
demonstration.
I think that personally is probably getting in confrontations with the police, getting in peaceful confrontations with the police, or maybe non-peaceful, but like non-violent, conversations with the police, and then having the police behave badly, and then you record that. That has seemed to have been throughout me covering this whole movement. The times that there's any kind of pressure on public officials for them to make statements, to make changes in command staff, to where city councilors are going to be like, I'm going to introduce a bill or whatever, like it always seems to come after there's some video of a police officer behaving badly. For instance, I just reported yesterday about a police officer behaving badly.
But the opposite is true too. So videos of protesters behaving badly.
And so I would say that, regardless of whether people support what happened, downtown, the press coverage of that is what I think I described on Twitter as an own goal, basically.
A what? A what?
An own goal, like in soccer. It's when you like kick the ball in your own net.
Oh, okay.
And
I don't know from soccer.
This is America. We play football. But I think basically that what happened because of the press coverage, and again because that, I'm sorry, the right controls has a lot of power. They don't control all the press, but they have a lot of power, right? And when they want to rile something up, they can rile it up, and especially when there's video evidence of someone doing something like what they did, right?
Right, exactly.
So the how the press covered everything is gonna be a little bump, at least a little bump, in the road for this movement. And what needs to be focused on, and what needs to be focused on is how to organically get that press coverage that really helps shift everything.
Well, and I want to point out that we're less than 2 months out from the day we've been waiting for forever, which is the day we have the ability to get these fascists out of power, and that's even a bigger picture, frankly. And this, in as much as this scares some white suburbanites who now would not venture downtown and were sort of thinking they couldn't vote for Trump, scares them back into the Trump column. I mean, it's unforgivable. I just want to wring these kids' necks. And a lot of them are really young. They don't have, even their brains aren't fully developed, especially the part that, for judgment. Isn't that the last to develop? Oh God. I think
just to segue into my own reporting.
Go for it, Ryan.
I think a lot of what's happening with this movement and the fact that suddenly the protesters are so young. And I was at this place myself, like when I first moved to Pittsburgh. I'm not as young as they were, but I was still naive in terms of what Pittsburgh is. There's still a lot to be learned about the local politics and the local media and how it all works. And like, for instance, there feels like, at least online and in protest, a strong movement to oust Mayor Bill Deto.
Yes, online. Yes.
Yes, online. Yes, and my story this week is I talked to a bunch of people, and I tried to talk to as many people as I could to see if there's any legitimate challengers who are thinking about running against Mayor Peduto, and so far there aren't. There's none.
Yeah, I was asking someone this question just the other day.
Right.
So somebody wants to outflank him on the left. Have you heard a name? No.
No, there's been some names that have been thrown around, but again, I think a lot of the learning process, I'm not trying to insult anybody from like trying to understand politics and learn through it, because like I'm admitting that when I first got here, I didn't really understood it, and I probably went too fast in before I really understood what was going on. But like for instance, a lot of people are suggesting that Summer Lee run, or Jerry Dickinson run, or Lisa Middleman run. These are some of the strongest names that have been out online. All those people are ineligible to run because they do not live in the city of Pittsburgh, and you have to live in the city for at least 3 years before you run for mayor. That's like one of the only rules. And
Dickinson doesn't live in the city?
No, he lives in Swissvale. It's close to the border.
For those of you who don't know who Dickinson was, he ran against in the primary against why am I blanking now?
Doyle.
Yes, Mike Doyle for Congress. Yeah. He's a law professor at Pitt.
Yes, and he's a smart guy and he's an ambitious guy, and also to be frank, he probably underperformed what he probably could have done against Mike Doyle. So that's another kind of learning thing to learn, to be like, well, he didn't do that well against Mike Doyle, so he might not be able to beat Deto. You could argue Peduto's to the left of Doyle. So I think a lot of these things, and there's been other names thrown out there, and I reached out to all of them, and I think some people were suggesting, maybe Erica Strasburger could run, maybe Corey O'Connor could run, these younger, maybe more ambitious, city councilors, and both of them said they're not running.
No, this is not their time. I mean, I have little doubt that O'Connor wants to run and intends to run, but this is not the time.
I think in the city, another thing I forgot in my story is an incumbent mayor hasn't lost in the city of Pittsburgh since 1933. And that was the last Republican mayor to hold the office. And apparently he was placed in that office just a couple years before his election. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of like the last gasp of the GOP in the city of Pittsburgh. So that was the last time an incumbent mayor lost, and even that was a weird circumstance, So it just shows that incumbent mayors don't lose that much, even when they're starting to and
when I've
get a
mentioned,
little bit more unpopular.
When I've mentioned to people that these protesters really want Peduto out, people are shocked. People who are not on social media say, "What? What?" I mean, he's supportive of the movement, blah, 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 but he has seemed tentative and a little ham-fisted at times, and sort of prickly. I don't think he's handled the situation at his house particularly deftly. And I think he's hurt. My guess is he's always assumed that he's thought of as this progressive.
Right.
And to have progressives.
Right.
Yeah,
come after him.
He's angry.
Just last year, he took some pretty strong stances for a prominent Western Pennsylvania politician to come out against Cracker Plant.
Against Cracker Plant and fracking and all of that. And
he got some serious blowback from that, from Fitzgerald and the right, and the center basically. And that was and a lot of people in the city applauded him for that, and now, so he's doing it from this other thing. And I think it kind of speaks, yes, I think it speaks to generally that, I think I would also agree that he's been a little ham-fisted on some, some recent things, but he was still, even before all that, he was still really, really popular within the city.
Yeah, I think he still is.
Realize. And I think so too.
And the protesters don't realize that either.
Yes. I think maybe he's taken some hits from his popularity, but I mean, when he ran for re-election, he had 69% of the vote in a three-way race. That's a lot. And so I think maybe he's taken some hits, but he's still probably generally popular. And I think that's something that I think, young people who are starting to get into politics, you gotta understand. You gotta understand that this is what the playing field is. How do we play on this field, and how do we win?
Well, they're a long way from that. They're still in the sort of demonstrative, passionate, phase of letting their voices be heard. But and that's fine and dandy with me until they start helping Donald Trump, and then I want them to shut the F up. That's just from me.
Yeah.
Hey, can I move to another local story? I saw, speaking of the Twitterverse, the Michael Fuoco of the Newspaper Guild. He heads the guild that's the union at Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He tweeted this yesterday. It was abundantly clear today that the Post-Gazette does not want a peaceful settlement with the guild. We tried. We offered concessions any company looking for a negotiated settlement would jump at. What we got was disdain and disrespect. They want war, they'll get it.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like we're heading to a real, a strike.
Well, they've already authorized the strike.
But they haven't walked out. So,
right.
Yeah.
They just got to get the okay and the date from the head union. And
now,
go ahead, please.
Also, Burris has been replaced.
Yes.
By some guy from the used to be at the Philadelphia Inquirer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's going on there, and what's that about, do you think?
I think there's a lot of mystery, to be perfectly honest. I think Potter, I think the editor at WESA, Chris Potter, had a really good tweet about it where he says, no one knows what this means.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all right.
and I agree with that. Like, it's truly a mystery. Most of the staffers at the PG were like, oh, we had no idea about this. And this is like, they dropped it on like a Saturday too, on a holiday. And,
why would this guy walk into this is what I want to know.
I don't know. It's a really good question. I mean, maybe, to be perfectly frank, I don't think Burris was good at his job, right? I mean, I don't think he's good at being the executive editor, basically like running the editorial staff. I think what his experience was in and what
opinion, which is what he's going to be left to.
Right, opinion. Yeah, that was his more of his bread and butter, even though I don't like his opinions.
Does this mean though that he's physically going to go back to where he came from, to Toledo?
I don't know. I mean, they don't really talk to me. So.
Okay. Okay. Well, just wanted, because some people might not be aware of all of these things going on, and since it's pretty much the only paper we've got left, kind of, sort of, daily.
I will say that I think the Trib has been doing some pretty decent work lately.
Yes, they have.
So
They've been stepping up.
A pat on the back. Yes.
Yes, well, they're picking up some of the PG reporters.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I know Paula Reed Ward, covering the courts forever for PG, is now with them.
Amazing job. Yep.
And she's good. So if you want local news now, Trib Live.
City paper first.
Well, of course, but I'm saying as a Pittsburgh City paper. And Trib Live are going to give you news happening.
Right. And
the PG, not so much. Not so much.
Right, especially of late, it's just been so chaotic ever since they took that strike vote. I think there's been, I've noticed a lot of staffers have been going on vacation, which obviously they deserve a vacation. But, it just kind of feels like a
sinking ship.
A little bit. So we'll see what happens with the strike. To be honest, I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened sooner. But I don't know. I guess this is how these things play out. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, always good to get your point of view. I respect it, especially since you're a good 40 years younger than me. So and the fact that you are in agreement with me on this really made me happy.
I guess I surprise some people sometimes.
Yeah. Well, no, but you're absolutely right, and I think you're in a unique position to at least get the attention of a lot of protesters who can then maybe put some pressure on Nikki Lorenzo and some of the others who have gotten maybe too full of themselves and lost their way a little bit.
Yeah, and I think just as like from a journalist point of view, like I like covering this stuff and I want to continue to cover it, but I also want to continue to see, impactful journalism. That's what I think. That's what that's what City Paper really wants to try to do. Impactful, entertaining too.
Right.
But and so the more that becomes the focus of these things, not only makes me happy as a writer and as a reporter, but I think it will make a bigger difference, on the whole movement moving forward.
Exactly. Ryan, thank you. You got a lot of work to do, buddy.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks for having me on.
And you're doing great work. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye. So, God almighty. Did you watch Michael Cohen on Rachel Maddow last night? I watched some of it. I watched the first little bit, and then I just couldn't anymore. But because I really rarely watch these shows, but I knew she had him on, and I wanted to hear. He said pretty much off the top something that made my blood run cold, but he knows this guy so well, this guy being Trump, that I listen when Michael Cohen speaks. And he said this, and I think it is absolutely spot on. I don't have the exact quote, but close. He says if Trump loses, he'll have 2.5 months, which is something that's always made me a wreck, right? Those 2.5 months till Biden would be sworn in. So Cohen says if he loses, he's got 2.5 months. He'll resign and let President Pence pardon him and his family and a whole bunch of other people. Now tell me that doesn't sound exactly like what would happen. Technically, it would be legal, right? He'll resign. The then lame duck vice president becomes the president for a whole, 2 months. And Trump resigns. The deal is you can be president for 2 months, but you got to pardon me. Now, it remains to be seen whether Pence would be okay with that position in history. I don't know. I also want to say that it's also true that this would not shield Trump from all of the New York, the Southern District of New York, going after him after the fact, once he's out, and would, I think, and it would certainly not stop. Well, it might, the Southern District, since that's the feds, but it would not stop the district attorney, Cyrus Vance, for going after Trump Corporation and all of their shady, probably illegal dealings. Nor would it stop the New York Attorney General or other attorneys general. So it wouldn't state and local people from going after him, because the president, even a 2-month president, Pence, could not shield Trump from any of that. So I just thought that sounded so plausible, and in a way, okay with me. If he were, just get out and stop, because if he doesn't get out, if he retains the presidency up until the last minute, I can't even begin to imagine what he will do, because no norm will be left unshattered. And I don't know if you, like I, have been thinking and praying for Ruth Bader Ginsburg every day. We haven't mentioned her, but she's always in my thoughts. She's still hanging in, and she's got, I have little doubt, a terminal illness now. And if she dies before the election, they will put someone on the court. If she dies after the election and Trump is still in as a lame duck, they would still put someone on the court. She really has to stay alive until the 6th, I believe it's the 6th or the 3rd of January, which is when the newly elected senators and House members take their seats. They are sworn in before the president. I might not have the date right. But they are sworn in the first week in January, I think. Somebody might want to check that for me, but that's what I think. So once they are in, I would, and I'm going to assume that the Democrats retake the Senate, although I shouldn't, but I will. Then the court packing ends as of then. So this is all of the stuff that keeps us up at night. I have little doubt. Okay, just checking to see if I had okay. You know what hadn't occurred to me, but is another thing that clearly is going to happen? I'm thinking of all the things the children are having to deal with now. And children being, I don't know, used to not having any power and just being told this is what it is, this is what you got to do, blah, blah, blah. They might be more capable than some of us ossified adults. But they have been asked to forego so many things, summer camps, playing with, any friend they want to, school, all of this stuff that they have lost. And you know what they're going to lose coming up next month? They're going to lose trick-or-treating. You tell me if that isn't true. How the hell would anybody trick-or-treat during a pandemic? How the hell? So the good news is it'll save me from gaining my usual trick-or-treat few pounds, because I never know how many are coming. I always get too much, and I end up eating it all. So, but, that's just another sad thing. Actually, Los Angeles, I believe, has already called off trick-or-treating. Aw. Roger asks, how does one get pardoned if they're not convicted of anything? Is that possible? Now, that's an interesting question. Any lawyers in the house? I think it probably might be that you can say, and I think it must be possible. Somebody help me on that too, Roger. That's a good question. A really good question. And Gigi says, Cohen's theory has also been my friend's theory for a while. But, Pence can't pardon Trump from state charges, and New York is going after him. Right. Also, wouldn't he have to be charged with something before a pardon could be issued? Here's that question again. Anybody? Anybody know the answers? Are we a legal-free audience here? Man, no lawyers. Okay. No, maybe constitutional lawyers or whatever. But that's a great question, and I'm sure we'll get an answer, if not before the hour's up by tomorrow. I would imagine I'll make a point of it. But also, speaking of the law, and as it exists under this lawless president, unconvicted though he may be, what Barr's Justice Department pulled off yesterday is jaw-dropping. And in case you hadn't heard the latest travesty, as you know, many women have charged that Donald Trump assaulted them, raped them. One woman who said she was raped by him is a journalist named E. Jean Carroll, and she came out with her story last year, I believe, and she still has the dress she was wearing when he raped her at a department store, in a department store dressing room. And she's been going after him. And she has a case pending against him that has been moving through the judicial system. And what she's accusing him of is not rape, I think I have this right, but of slander, because of what he has said about her and the rape since. Trump's has been trying to forestall this thing constantly. But not too long ago, a New York state court where this is playing out rejected Trump's attempt for a delay. And so they were running out of cards to play, and he was going to have to, Trump, produce documents, sit for a deposition, and most importantly, provide the court a DNA sample. Which, if it matches what's on her dress, we got a whole new game here. And so, because that was starting to get way too close for comfort, who comes to his rescue? Bill Barr and the U.S. Attorney General, who would have nothing to do with a case like this. What does this have to do? By the way, we'll be paying for it now. So, for the Justice Department, what they said is they're intervening. And they are going to represent Trump in this case. And I think I've got this right, or their intervention turns the case to, they want to make the government the defendant rather than Trump. So they'll be arguing stuff like, in the scope of his office as president, he is entitled to say this or that, and yada, yada, yada. And I might be spewing some incorrect stuff here, but I have never heard of such a thing. I mean, it means that the United States Justice Department and its muscle and its lawyers will be his defense attorney. Now, in essentially a rape case, they're saying that because Trump was acting as president when he denied the rape, the courts should substitute the United States for President Trump as a defendant because he's, well, I mean, that just sounds, again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know anything about the law. But this is clearly another effort to delay, because that DNA on her dress is going to match Donald Trump's. Incredible. Oh. Kurt writes, I don't know if it's legal or constitutional, but Gerald Ford's pardon of Nixon was preemptive. It was, wasn't it? There you go. There you go. So it can be done. When Ford pardoned Nixon on Nixon's way out the door, exactly the same scenario, right? And that pardon by Ford covered any crimes he had been accused of or might be accused of related to actions taken during his presidency. And I'll tell you, if you'll recall, if you were around then, all hell broke loose. But some would argue it allowed the country to move forward. I don't know what the right answer, but thank you, Kurt. I think that's right. So, I'm not sure why a president can do that, but that is true. Nixon had not been convicted of anything when he resigned. He'd been impeached, but he hadn't been convicted in the impeachment. And that would be its own, he would have been then removed as president. Ford still, I suppose, could have pardoned him then for any other crimes that somehow hadn't been covered in the impeachment or any others that would come to light. Fascinating. And recall that Gerald Ford was the vice president then, who became the president, because Richard Nixon's vice president was a felon, Spiro Agnew. He didn't last out as vice president because he was a criminal, a crook. And it's interesting about these Republican administrations with all their crooks. Nixon's Attorney General, John Mitchell, ended up doing time. All the people around him, Haldeman, Ehrlichman, what's his name, the Jesus freak, all of them ended up felons. And would that be the case with this crowd? Because this crowd actually makes the Nixon guys look like Boy Scouts. Somebody's telling me that Donald Trump has just been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, right. Yeah, fat chance of that. Okay, Father Joseph, I will read this without inserting any of my reactions. Okay, I'm going to read it as written. The key to successful protests is the messaging and the optics. Boy, do I have to bite my tongue. Okay. Gay community, fairness and safety is their message. Optics, pictures of loving, professional, career couples and families, as well as examples of hate crimes. Okay. Successful protests, undocumented immigrants. The message is they contribute to the country's labor force and caring for children, and I'll add this, I can't help myself, and the economy would collapse without them. The optics, the dreamers, scenes of children in cages, children being torn from their parents' arms. So, right. So far, really good here, Father Joseph, and I can't help myself. There's messaging, and then there's optics. And then Father Joseph says, the messaging and optics are way off for the current protest. It is not about what the media uses. It is all about what the protesters provide by way of messaging and optics. They are not organized for strategic communication. However, it is also true there is a learning curve for movements. Undocumented immigrants first tried marching with pride, carrying flags from their home nations, like Mexico or Venezuela, but you didn't see many American flags. That was a classic mistake. The next march had loads of American flags on display because the movement began to understand messaging and optics. This will take time. Oh, well, you're absolutely right. I'm an impatient person. My fear, though, is the fear of the time we are in, which is 2 months, less than 2 months out from the election. An election that is being run by the incumbent by racial fear baiting. You see these people, these out-of-control black people who are grabbing, terrorizing diners and go even terrorizing black owners of restaurants? They're foul-mouthed, they're scary, and they're coming for you. So inasmuch as the optics, certainly from this weekend here, play into the hands of Trump and his efforts for 4 more years, I feel like I don't have time to have these young protesters have time to learn. Somebody's got to tell them. They're hurting right now. They're hurting us. They don't have their shit together. Excuse me, Father. They don't have their messaging together, and they don't have the optics. Many of them do. The marches have been. I mean, I have been so proud of the marches and of the marchers and I went on one and I was blown away by what I saw as the organization of it. The marshals, the constant, the leaders of the march, the one I was on, constantly telling the marchers to be respectful, to not in any way leave a mess, to clean up anything. And when they left one place and started marching on to another, they said, okay, we need to clean up everything that's here. We're going to make it cleaner than it was when we came. That kind of care. Nixon wasn't impeached. Oh, it's just the threat of impeachment? You see how my old brain is. Nixon wasn't, he surely would have been once the tapes were released, but he resigned. He resigned before he was, you're right, he did. He was not impeached. I'm sorry. I think I'm saying a lot of stupid stuff today. I don't know why. Well, I'll tell you why. I have a doctor's appointment in an hour and a half, and I'm so nervous because I'm just nervous about this. So I think my head's not quite here. That's my excuse, as I knew. Oh, dear. And Mary says, Ford granted to Nixon a full and unconditional pardon for any crimes that he might have committed against the United States as president. In particular, the pardon covered Nixon's actions during the Watergate scandal. And so the pardon was for any crimes he may have committed while in office. And, you know, when it comes to Donald Trump, that list is so long. I mean, there isn't a day that goes by that he probably hasn't committed a crime. I kid you not. Just with the emoluments, just with his getting rich, just with the why am I blanking on the Hatch Act? Just with stuff like that on a daily basis. Oh, well, thank you all. I was checking to see if we had the report in, the COVID report yet, but, you know, and I will be in terror of getting that report in another few weeks because they've been so good lately, but they're ain't so good, I got a feeling, in the near future. Oh, here it is. Did I just say good? Well, I mean, it's new cases are still under 100. It's 68 confirmed cases in the last 24 hours, but they're reporting 9 new deaths. The deaths are, 5 people in their 70s, 3 in their 80s, 1 in their 90s. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, we got to steel ourselves because that is going to be going up. All right, guys. Okay. Thank you so very much for being there, for correcting me, keeping me honest. I do appreciate it, truly. And I'll be back tomorrow, God willing. Have a great day.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.